Hello, my name is Edudelm. These past few weeks I managed to work on my first game's remake. It wasn't easy, as Elden Ring came out and all. But this time I managed to create a health system for the game. And I also made some destructible crates to hide health objects. These objects will replenish the health of the player. Let's review the process step by step. The first thing I did was implementing a knockback component. This component will move characters in a direction for some time. I can modify the time the character is moving in Unity's editor. There is also a force applied to the character that will be in the weapon that made the character be knocked back. For now, I made a test function to check things out. When I press a button, the player is pushed to the right. It was feeling okay, but I needed new animations for the player. To add some variety, I made 2 knockback animations. When the player is hit, any of those 2 animations will be played, and the knockback component will move him. To add more strength to the hit, a particle effect will be nice, but my knowledge on particles is limited, so I searched for tutorials on YouTube. I found this great channel that uses VFX Graph. VFX Graph is an awesome tool to create particle effects. Check out Gabriel Aguiar's channel if you want to learn how to do those kind of effects. Link in the description. So, when the player gets hit, he plays an animation and a VFX is shown. The whole thing was feeling kind of bland, so I added some screen shake to the hits. This is totally customizable in the health component. I can modify the time the screen is shaking and the strength. This is easy to achieve using Cinemachine, a great tool to create cameras in Unity. There is a component called Perlin Noise and lets you do some screen shake. Next, I implemented the health component in the enemies, but there was a problem. The player uses a character controller to move, and that component can register hits, but the enemy is different. He uses an AppMesh agent to handle pathfinding, and that component can register hits. As you can see, the health component is working, but only because I added a character controller and a collider to the enemy. But the bad news are that the AppMesh agent and character controller don't go well together. So I needed to investigate how to achieve the same thing I had in the player in an AppMesh agent. The best solution I found is to have a rigid body and a collider in the enemy. This rigid body will be kinematic, as I don't want to move the enemy with forces. However, having this component will let me register hits on the enemies. Next, I added some sound effects to the hits, as everything is better with sound. In the weapons of the characters, there is a component called Hit Component. It contains the damage of the weapon, the force applied in the knockback, which objects can be hurt, and a list of sounds. Whenever there is a hit, a random sound will be picked to be played. Here is the result in action. Having the player losing health is great and all, but I needed a way to regain that health. In the original game, you can break crates to get hearts and score points. The score points were used to gain more lives, but I don't plan on using that system in the remake. But I think that it will be cool to have the player destroy crates to find hearts. Having that in mind, I started modeling a new crate, one that is broken in pieces. I did some research, and the way that other games handle destroying objects is this. First, you have a simpler object, which is not broken into pieces. Then, when you break the object, you swap it with the broken model. And that broken model will have physics in each part, to give a more authentic feeling. This is a great way to optimize the game, as there will be a lot of frames in the game, and I don't want the physics engine to run a comparison for each plank of the crate all the time, only when the crate is destroyed. With the broken crate done, I place it inside of the regular crate. This broken crate will be deactivated until needed. I also added rigid bodies to each part, to simulate physics. All is left to do is apply the health component to the crate and configure the events. In the health component you have customizable events, for being damage, being health and death. It's really customizable, as I can use this component in anything I want. It doesn't have to be a character. To test things out, I simply assign an event on the health component death to replace the regular crate with the broken one. But it was a bit weird, as the broken one affects the collision of the player, and there are parts that don't fall down. To fix that, I apply a force to each part when the crate is broken. It also has the direction of the hit, so the force will change depending on the position of the character. And using the VFX I used in the character and the enemy hits was a good way to improve the feeling of the mechanic. However, making all these changes gave me the opportunity to test the combat a little bit, and there was something that was bugging me. The enemies were incredibly insistent with their attacks. As soon as the attack animation was done, they will do another attack. I think that will be annoying in the future, so I made a cooldown for the attacks. Now I can customize the time it takes an enemy to attack again. That will be a great tool to balance difficulty too. The next thing I did was making some adjustments to the destructible crates. Remember what I said about the physics engines running for each plank of the crate? This is, without a doubt, a bit expensive. So I fixed it by disabling the physics of the planks the moment they touch the ground. This also fixed an issue, where the plank that didn't touch the ground, for example that was sitting on top of another crate, was static after a few seconds. This meant some floating planks in certain situations. With this system, they behave more realistic and it's less impactful in the performance of the game. The point of making these destructible crates was to have healing objects. So I jumped back into Blender and started modeling a hard object. To match the aesthetic of the game, I made it really low poly, and to animate it, I used the animation tools of Unity. Just a little spin and movement will do the trick. I had to do some adjustments as you can animate the position of the object itself and have it spawn in random places. To fix that, I created the heart as a child object. This way, I can move the parent object to the side crate and have the heart as a child animate its position relative to the parent. Now, the crates have a probability to spawn a heart, and it also replenishes the character's health, but I think it was looking rather bland. I will want to have the attention of the player whenever a heart is spawned. For that, I added some particles to the hearts. What do you think? And also the enemies can now break crates. At the moment, the probability to spawn hearts is 100% to test things out, but later I will change it to 30 or 40%. And that's my progress so far. What do you think? Do you have any ideas or feedback of the game? Leave a comment below. I think I will get into adding an interface to the game, to show the health of the character and other stuff like keys or something, but that will have to wait to the next episode. Thank you so much for the support. Remember to subscribe and activate notifications, so you won't miss any new updates. And follow me in the social sites to get more frequent updates. See you next time!